Good morning, YouTube. This morning I woke up about 5 a.m. or so, and some thoughts began to run through my mind. I began to think about this, what's known as Obamacare, and I think that many people believe that this is something new. The part concerning what Sarah Palin called death panels to determine who can live and who can die. Uh, I'm going to go ahead and read something here that I prepared. I did some research, and I'm going to go ahead and read this to you just to show you that this is nothing new. Okay? H.R. 3200, the federal health care legislation to cover the uninsured in the United States, is commonly known as Obamacare. Section 1233 is deemed by many as a vicious assault on the elderly and disabled. So-called death panels could determine who lives and who dies. In a September 2009 speech, Sarah Palin stated, and I quote, "To me, while reading that section of the bill, it became so evident that there would be a panel of bureaucrats who would decide on levels of health care, decide on those who are worthy or not worthy of receiving some government-controlled coverage, since health care would have to be rationed if it were promised to everyone. It would therefore lead to harm for many individuals not able to receive the government care. That leads, of course, to death." In October 2010, Sarah Palin defended her use of the term death panels when she said, and I quote, "Spoke a lot about the rationing of care that was going to be a part of Obamacare, and I was about laughed out of town for bringing to light what I call death panels, because there's going to be faceless bureaucrats who will, based on cost analysis and some subjective idea on somebody's level of productivity in life, somebody is going to call the shots as to whether your loved one will be able to receive health care or not. To me, death panel, I called it like I saw it, and people didn't like it." The Bible tells us in Ecclesiastes 1:9, "The thing that hath been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun." Here are 3 incidences which occurred to a determination by government officials as to who lives and who dies. Incident number 1. In 1983, Randy Weaver bought 20 acres of land on Ruby Ridge, Idaho, where his wife Vicki, their children, and a friend, Kevin Harris, would build a cabin and live. Their reason for doing this? They wanted to homeschool their children and wanted to escape from what they believed was a corrupt world. In 1990, the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms filed bogus illegal weapons charges against Randy Weaver because he refused to become an informant for an investigation into the Aryan nations. On August 21st, 1992, an FBI hostage rescue team was deployed to an area in close proximity to Randy Weaver's cabin. There, they attempted to get Weaver and Harris to surrender. During an altercation outside of the cabin, Randy's 14-year-old son, Samuel, was shot in the back and killed. On August 22nd, while inside the cabin, Vicki Weaver was shot in the head while holding their 10-month-old baby. Randy Weaver and Kevin Harris were acquitted of all charges. You see, Randy and Vicki Weaver did not deserve to choose for themselves how they would live and raise their family. Because Randy refused to play ball, it was determined that members of his family did not deserve to live. After court proceedings, Randy Weaver received $100,000, while each one of his surviving 3 children received $1 million apiece, and Kevin Harris received $380,000 as well. Incident number 2. It was determined that the leader of the Branch Davidians in Waco, Texas, was a cult leader. Allegations of child sexual abuse was leveled against David Koresh, as well as being accused of stockpiling illegal weapons. On April 19, 1993, the Waco, Texas Branch Davidian massacre began. Local law enforcement was never notified of an impending raid. Allegations of child sexual abuse were never substantiated. Interesting to note, 3 U.S. Army helicopters were used to cause an aerial distraction. 9 Bradley fighting vehicles carrying M651 CS tear gas grenades and 40mm CS ferret rounds were used. And 5 M60 combat engineering vehicles were used as well. Whatever happened to the 1878 Posse Comitatus Act? It's been trashed, just like the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. CS gas was pumped into the complex over a 2-day period. One ATF agent assigned stated the initial shots were fired by ATF members. 3 separate fires were started. Prior to the fires, holes were punched in various parts of the complex walls. It is suspected the holes were punched in order to feed oxygen to the fires. And if you watch the video of the complex fire, you will see the fire spreads very quickly, which would support the suspicions. And as a side note, when CS gas is exposed to fire, it produces cyanide gas. There were 85 Branch Davidians. 9 escaped the flames, while 76 were killed, including 25 children and 2 pregnant women. Again, we had a group of people who did not do things the way the government felt they should, so false allegations were made, and ultimately 76 lives were taken. And incident number 3. In February 1990, Terry Schiavo collapsed in her home for undetermined reasons. Her brain was deprived of oxygen for several minutes, which resulted in severe brain damage. Terry was in a vegetative state for 15 years. Terry's husband, Michael, decided he wanted to move on with his life and requested through the corrupted court system to have Terry's feeding tube removed. Terry's parents, Bob and Mary Schindler, begged the courts to give them custody of their daughter. They said they would care for her in their own home. They didn't request any type of compensation from anybody. They would do it on their own. They loved their daughter. They wanted to do it. Their request was denied. On March 18, 2005, Terry's feeding tube was removed. On March 31, 2005, Terry Schiavo died after suffering for 13 days of dehydration and starvation. Convicted murderers are treated with more compassion when they're killed via lethal injection. Those who should suffer are given a few drugs and within moments are dead. Yet this innocent woman suffered for 13 days. Why? Because it was determined Terry's husband Michael deserved to live a happy life, trampling underfoot his vows to love and cherish Terry in sickness and in health. I believe the reasons for H.R. 3200 legislation, these 3 incidences, and any future actions against humanity is spelled out in the first point on the Georgia Guidestones. And I quote, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. That means that over 6.5 billion people would have to be killed. Some of the ways through which this will be accomplished are: 1. Overseas police actions, better known as wars. 2. H.R. 3200, better known as Obamacare. 3. H.R. 1540, the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012, specifically Section 1021, the indefinite detention of U.S. citizens. Where will they be detained? U.S. FEMA camps and overseas concentration facilities, where in both cases you will most likely be eliminated. 4. H.R. 3166, the Enemy Expatriation Act. If your U.S. citizenship is revoked, where will you go? U.S. FEMA camps and overseas concentration facilities, where in both cases you will most likely be eliminated. 5. Future governmental police actions. 6. Through the pro-homosexual and lesbian agenda. You see, homosexuals and lesbians can't procreate. And lastly, the murder of the unborn, better known as abortion. I'm sure if I thought about it, I could come up with more examples. But in the end, the bottom line is depopulation. Is there anything that can be done about this? I don't think so. When these things first began to happen, we should have taken a stand as a nation. The preachers in the pulpits should have taken a stand, but they remained silent. And so as a result, these things have been implemented slowly over time. And now, in these last couple of years, we've seen things being implemented at breakneck speed. Is there anything that we can do about it? There's only one thing that I can think of, and that is get on our faces before an almighty God and beg for mercy. That's all we can do. But I just wanted to give you some food for thought. God bless.